You are exactly right. Spy is a term that professional intelligence officers don't use. It doesn't exist. Because what's the definition of a spy? In reality, what we have are agents and officers. Agents are the people who officers recruit to sell secrets about their own country. So you don't have an American agent. What you have is an agent of some foreign country that's giving the US secrets. That's what an agent is. It's very different than FBI. An FBI agent is in fact an officer of the country. But in CIA and intelligence terms, an agent is a foreign intelligence source. But then you have intelligence officers. Intelligence officers are the people who are charged by the government of the United States to collect secrets from agents. And the reason that they're called officers is because they come with a certain level of information handling, security handling, information management. They come with real skills that would qualify them as officer cadre.
Okay. And so what was it that you did in this that you can talk about in the CIA?
I was an intelligence officer. And then inside the intelligence officer cadre, there are many types of officers. There are analysts, there are technical officers, there are field or case officers, there are staff officers, there are paramilitary officers, linguistic officers. I mean, the list is quite significant. Open source analysts. Our disguise people are officers. Our alias doc people who make our documentation are officers. And there's all these different skill sets within. So I was what's known as a staff operations officer, which means an officer who is there's different categories of blue badge and green badge, whether you're a contractor or hired on behalf of the federal government. But I was a federal government staff operations officer, a CIA employee who was not disclosed to the public, whose job was to manage operations, and those operations were intelligence collection operations.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because I, of course, have been tricked a few times, so I was like, all right, is this guy real? So I called my friend Daryl Blocker. I don't know if you know him.
I used to work for Daryl.
Okay, so he was like, I can confirm he definitely worked here, did what he says he did. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because there's a lot of people, I'm sure you've come across, do you know this person? And you're like, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, there's a few of those.
Well, there's dozens. What's fascinating is, especially in social media right now, you will hear lots of people come out and say that this was I worked for the agency or I was an agency officer. And they're not necessarily lying, because the way that the CIA works, it does a lot of different types of blended operations. So it will reach out to the military, like it'll reach out to the Navy SEALs, and it will second a Navy SEAL into CIA for an operation. So for the course of these 3 months, they're still a Navy SEAL, but they're granted CIA status. But then when they're done with their operation, they go right back to Navy SEALs and their CIA status is withdrawn. Same thing is true about contractors. That's what happened with Edward Snowden. People thought Snowden was a CIA officer. He was not. He was a contractor hired by CIA for a short period of time to carry out a task before he was then sent back to his contract company.
Hamilton. Yeah.
But
is that right? Yeah.
Booz Allen. I think
Booz Allen, yeah. Or is it Booz Allen Hamilton? We'll figure that out after the show when I get 100 emails about it. Yeah. It was something like that. Yeah, that makes sense. There's this trend I'm sure you've seen where somebody who is an analyst, respectable job, will say, yeah, I'm a CIA officer, and people go, oh my gosh, and then they do the rounds of media or they write a book or something like that, and but you put 2 whiskeys in them and they're like, yeah, I was in charge of looking at a lot of documents in a desk and I never really left the desk and I know a lot about Egypt. And you're just like, oh, have you ever been there? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's not what I thought this was. So there's a whole lot of that. My friends who are all DO guys, like where you were, they were all like, don't join. Don't do it. But I'm curious what your opinion
Well, what year was it too? I'm curious.
These guys were in the DO through 9/11. So they must have been joined in the 90s because my law school career ended in 2006. So unless their career was only like a year or 2 long, which I doubt, they were there through September 11th and everything. And I remember one guy was like, I can never go to Egypt, and I never even saw the frickin' pyramids, and I was there for a long time because he got PNG'd. So persona non grata is basically you get banned from a country.
Right.
So he's banned from a country. I don't know if they found out he was there illegally. I guess that's probably why.
Well, that's what's funny about PNG status is, it is a punitive measure against the federal government more than a person. So he could have not even been discovered. He could have been totally an upstanding citizen in Egypt, but Egypt wanted to send a message to the United States, so it would PNG 10 people on a list, and he could have been one of those people.
I see. Okay. So maybe they didn't know anything
But
about
I think there's a couple things that are important here. So one, you were being considered potentially for recruitment at a critical time, 2006 to 2007. I was recruited in 2007. That means the post 9/11 or the pre 9/11 cadre were still in charge. But the reason 9/11 happened, frankly, I mean, I'm sorry to say this about your friends, was because the pre 9/11 people didn't keep us safe on 9/11.
Sure.
The CIA pre 9/11 was focused on Cold War stuff. It was staffed with, for the most part, Caucasian, Ivy League educated
That's
people.
what this dude was. He told me, he's like, the agency is so broken, you can't get anything done. You can't even do your own job. I mean, that's why he told me not to join.
So
not
that
because it was boring or something.
And that led to the September 11th attacks. That led to us failing to prevent the September 11th attacks. Well, then September 11th happened. 2 years after September 11th, the 9/11 Commission came out. That was when the federal government, especially the Congress and the House, all came together. The House and the Senate came together and said, CIA, you're broken. FBI, you're broken. You guys caused this whole thing. So now we, as the federal legislature, are going to come in and force you to change. That was 2003. That turned into a ton of money coming into the federal government, all focused on counterterrorism operations, which had been overlooked prior to 2003. And then this massive surge of new hiring. And the new hiring was not Ivy League Caucasian people anymore.
Right.
It was people of diversity, people who had world travel, people who had foreign languages, people of a certain age group. So when
I was like 25.
I was 27.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they were looking for, was mixed ethnic, like people with strong educational histories, but not necessarily from predictable schools.
Yeah.
A huge variance from what the pre-9/11 days look like.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I was in the 90s, I remember asking a guy who's a former intel officer how to join, and he was like, join a church and or the Freemasons. And he's like, what ethnicity are you? Because this was not an in-person conversation. And I was like, a white dude from Michigan. He's like, okay. And he told me this very totally antiquated way that they recruit, which was go to an Ivy League school. That was one of the things. Join a church and or the Freemasons and like rise up in the ranks of whatever you can, because they look for, I don't know, just like really waspy people probably. And then
because they were looking for people loyal to the body, not loyal to the organization.
I see.
Right? Loyal to the body means loyal to the other CIA officers. Because pre 9/11, it was kind of the Wild West. There was not a lot of oversight. There was a big black budget that officers could just do whatever they wanted to do. A term was coined that is unfortunately still present at CIA now, where you were looking for people who will play nicely in the sandbox.
Okay.
So you're basically looking for other kids that you want to let into your sandbox, so they'll all play nicely with each other. But if you're the kind of kid that comes in and is like, well, why are we playing in a sandbox? Or if you throw sand in somebody else's face, or if you take someone else's truck, they don't want you in their sandbox anymore. That was all pre 9/11. There are still cultural vestiges of that that have carried through, because the senior officers there right now were the junior officers before 9/11.
Sure. Okay.
So that cultural carryover is still there. But in about 10 more years, they'll be gone.
Right. It'll be interesting. Yeah. I'd never been to CIA headquarters or anything, but I'm guessing in the 90s it was a bunch, like you said, a bunch of white dudes. And now it's like men, women, different colors, different hairstyles. I assume, did you have that hair at the scene? No.
I tried. I
tried?
tried having long hair, and it turned into a big deal for the trainers there, because the people training us were vestiges of the pre-Cold War. You've never been to CIA headquarters. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
I will take you.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be really
They'll
cool.
only let us on the first floor.
Well,
it's the coolest floor, to be honest.
Okay, yeah. The one with the stars and the flags and everything. Yeah,
and all the busts and all the art and all the museums.
Sweet. Yeah, no, the other floors I can only imagine look like, it's like an embassy, right? You're like, whoa, this place is amazing. And then the rest of it's an office. And it's like, well, shit.
So true.
So
It's all cubicles and cream-colored walls.
Yeah, I ended up, I was working at the embassy in Panama in 2002. But it took forever to get my security clearance because of September 11th. And I remember I had a meeting with one of the security guys, and he was like, let me expedite this for you. I know you want to start your career. And I said, here's my stuff. He's like, I don't know why it's taking so long. I mean, September 11th, we're really busy, but like, how hard can it be to clear a guy? And he looked, and it was like, lived in Germany, but the former East Germany. And then it was like Israel. And it is, how long did you spend in Egypt? And he's like, this is going to take years. So I ended up working in a part of the embassy that didn't require any security clearance, and I couldn't go on the other floors, but my friends could, and I was like, just tell me what's on the other floors. And he's like, it looks like the second floor, except in the corner there's a box where you can light shit on fire. And I was like, that's it? That's all? You have like an incinerator? And they're like, that's all. And there's no USB ports to put in your music or whatever. And I'm like, that sucks. Because I was just making travel arrangements for like narco officers in Panama and the military, and basically sending guys to Vegas on the U.S. taxpayers' dime. Sorry, folks. And that was it. And they were like, yeah, I'm looking at a bunch of crap. Like, I actually ended up with one of the better jobs with like minimal responsibility, actual stuff that I was doing, and those guys were just doing intern work, but in a secured area, which is awful. It's the equivalent of being in an underground tank for 3 days at a time. Not quite.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. That's, again, we were talking about how media gets it all wrong. What you just described, that's clandestine operations. What you see on James Bond and Jason Bourne and what you see in Alias and what you see in most of that, that's not how it works. It works like it's a plain building with a secure floor. There's a big heavy bolt on the front door. And once you go past that door, there's no iPods, there's no cell phones, there's no music, there's no this, there's no freedom.
Yeah.
There's just secure messaging systems. And guess what? Secure messaging systems don't carry GIFs and can't handle PDFs. So it's all tippity-tap,
No
right?
emojis, yeah. No, I mean, back then, cell phones, if you even had one, were like, it had Snake on it, you know. But yeah, I could bring my phone. Nobody cared. Those guys had to leave theirs in a box. I've heard you talk a bit about your upbringing on other shows and how you started keeping secrets kind of early-ish. And I wonder, well, one, what happened? And also, did that make compartmentalization in your life easy when you got to CIA?
Yeah, and it's, you know, I love these conversations because, like with most people, what's my childhood, I tend to think of as normal for everybody's childhood.
Yeah, same, of course.
Like, we all think that if whatever our childhood was, must have been the average for everybody else. And it's surprising to me when it's not. So I didn't trust my parents growing up. And it was because my father died before I was really born. I think technically he died when I was a few months old, but he was out of my life before I was ever born. So I always just kind of summarize and say he died before I was born. My mom remarried a Caucasian guy who became my stepdad when I was 5. And apparently we had a good relationship until I was 5. But once I hit like 12 or 13, and once I had half sisters, which were his biological children with my mother, our relationship kind of got shaky.
That's too bad.
Well, I mean, I think, again, that's the plight of a step-parent. As an adult and a dad now, I kind of sympathize with my stepdad for what he must have had to go through.
Really?
But regardless, I'm 7 years old, and I'm learning I can't trust my dad, that there's favorites.
Yeah,
he clearly shows favoritism towards my sisters. He clearly trusts what they say more than what I say. So I'm learning I can't trust him. And then my biological mother, who's trying to make a marriage work. Again, 44 years old looking back, it makes sense. But 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, it didn't make sense. All I picked up was, Mom doesn't believe me, she believes him. He doesn't believe me, he believes my sisters who are just making shit up because they're 4 years old.
Right.
So I can't trust either of them. So once that started to take hold, I learned through the School of Hard Knocks how to lie more effectively, how to lie to survive. I also started learning that there's no reason to be honest first. There's a reason to be cagey and kind of distant and aloof first, and then over time decide if somebody has earned your trust or not earned your trust. So I started understanding that secrets were valuable, and I started understanding that I had the ability to control secrets. And then as I got into like my teenage years in public school, you start realizing that other people, they don't keep secrets at all. Other people are very transparent and they're very open. And then I started realizing, like, if you keep good secrets and you're around somebody who can't keep a secret, then you have tons of information that you can use for whatever you want to use it for. Whether you want to use it to get laid, or whether you want to use it to get ahead on a test, or whether you want to use it to get a teacher in your pocket, like whatever you want to do.
Freedom! So fresh, so new. Freedom!